Hey everyone, Mike Mulrooney here with Shirley Talk TV, and today we have Jessica Brotzge with the Arrow Fund. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Arrow Fund, but I hope you are now because they do some amazing things with animals. And so you're the president of the organization.
Yeah. And first of all, let me say thank you so much for tapping us to come in. We know about your organization, the great work that you all do, and we just really appreciate the time that you're giving us to talk about ours.
No problem. We want to, like I was telling you at the beginning, we want to tell the positive stories. We see enough of the negative stuff on TV. And
Sure.
why not cover positive stories of some of the things that our members in the community are doing? And it's amazing what you all do. So how did you get involved with the Arrow Fund?
So I've been involved with the Arrow Fund for about 6 years. I was on the board, asked to become a board member, and then just kind of stayed. And I started acting as president this past August. And it's just a great organization. The way I honestly, to tell you the truth, the way I got involved was I saw a post on Facebook. The Arrow Fund has a really strong presence on Facebook. So I saw a post, and they had posted a dog that was extremely injured. It was at Louisville Metro Services, and Metro was trying to find somebody to take this dog. He had heartworms. He had been running around. Somebody found him running around in a rural county in a cemetery. He had a gash all the way down the front of his leg. They're not sure what happened. And they said, we really want to pull this dog. The Arrow Fund, really wants to pull it, but we need to have a medical foster because we don't have one right now, and we don't have a place to put him if we pull him. So of course I wrote to them and said, I might be interested in that, and got a call immediately from the president at the time who said, awesome, here's our application, if you want to fill it out, and I can let you know what you're getting into. And long story short, by about less than 24 hours later, he was in the back seat of my car going to the vet's office. But, and he was our baby up until this past July, when he passed away from old age.
Wow.
So.
Well, that's a pretty incredible story. So is that how it works? Animals are brought in and that are extremely injured. If you're not familiar, so real quick, the Arrow Fund, you all handle animals that have been highly neglected. Some of the pictures I've seen are absolutely horrible. So
yeah, and I'll kind of tell you how we started. We kind of have a PowerPoint up here. So basically why we're called the Arrow Fund, because a lot of people don't necessarily associate that with animals. Yeah. There was a case, there was a dog that was reported. His name was Aiden. He's a black lab, and he was running around in rural eastern Kentucky for several days with an arrow through him. And a lot of people had seen him and had kind of put out feelers. We've got to help this dog. What do we do? And quite frankly, at that time, a lot of organizations were just not taking these types of cases or equipped to take these types of cases. There were a lot of shelters that just have lack of funding to treat these kind of cases. So at the time, there was a group of concerned individuals that were actually within another rescue organization that said, we want to help this dog. We want to start a fund within this organization to help this dog and rehabilitate him. And it was called the Arrow Fund just because of the nature of his injury. And so eventually the Arrow Fund split off into its own organization that really focuses on these types of extreme torture, abuse, neglect situations.
So the organizations that the original founders were working with, they didn't take the dogs. Did they raise money to do something? I mean,
they allowed this fund to be created within itself so that money could be raised, and those funds would specifically be earmarked to treat this animal. But it was such a different type of injury. Again, there was like nobody around at the time that really did this severe type of injury. Most times, quite frankly, shelters get these dogs, or a Good Samaritan will take them to the vet, and if there's no funds to treat them, they'll euthanize them. And that, we don't want that to happen, because most of these animals are treatable, both physically and emotionally. And they end up being amazing dogs. I mean, if you want, we've got one here. We'll bring Harper up for a second, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Harper's one of our cases. Harper's a female. She's still a puppy.
Beautiful.
She's around, what did you, like 6 months? Somewhere around 6 months. And if you want to introduce yourself.
Oh, sure. I'm Katie Love, and I am a trainer that works with the Arrow Fund. If they get a tough behavioral case, then I come in and work with the dog, kind of rehabilitate them, like you said, emotionally, and as well as the physical healing. And then we
She's great.
set them up with some basic obedience so that they're ready to go to a new home. I think the training really helps the new parents, feel confident that they've got a dog that they're going to be comfortable with for the rest of its life. And it kind of keeps the number of shelter dogs down by,
Absolutely.
increasing their behavioral skills.
Yeah. And Harper came to us. She was in a rural county. She had a severely fractured leg. And so there was just no funding available to take her. So we took her to Metro Services, got her surgery, plates, pins, the whole deal.
So what was wrong with her?
She had just a really compound fracture in her, what was it, the distal femur?
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so without the surgery, a lot of these dogs are in danger of amputation, euthanasia.
I've seen dogs hopping around on 3 legs before, so
Yeah.
So all right, so the Arrow Fund was started because of this dog here.
Because of Aiden, who is in
Did
a
they find
happy
out who
home.
shot the dog with the arrow? Was it an accident? Or?
No, unfortunately, it appears to not have been an accident. It appears to have been an act of cruelty that was just target practice.
I've heard hunters sometimes when dogs come out, they're interrupting their deer hunting, and sometimes they'll shoot the animals. So
it happens more than you would like to think, but yes. And so that's how it started. Aiden is still with us. He's in a happy, loving home. He's been adopted, doing great after that. And so really our organization has 5 primary goals, and those are up there, and I'll kind of go through each of them. Most people know us for rehabilitation. I mean, that's the primary way that everybody knows us, and Katie's a big help with that. But, rehabilitation is really getting the animals in, seeing what kind of specialized care they need. Again, that focuses on both physical and emotional. A lot of these animals have been so traumatized that they need emotional support as well. So we get them into specialists most times. We have all sorts of specialists on tap, oncologists, neurologists.
So a dog obviously can have PTSD is kind of what you were talking about.
A dog can have PTSD.
But so emotional is kind of like a PTSD for humans is what I'm thinking of. So you can rehab a dog from something like that?
You can
or an animal in general?
You can rehab a dog for something like that. I don't know if you want to speak to that because you deal with it more.
You talking on the microphone because these are direct.
Can I?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
It's a little bit tricky. It takes a lot of time and dedication. You've got to be very patient with the dog, but I've seen dogs come back from some very bad situations. A dog that is just so shut down, they're laying in a corner, they don't know what to do with themselves, they don't know how to be a dog.
Right.
And over several weeks, sometimes even months, we kind of work the dog through that. You can really build the relationship with them, and watching them learn how to trust is one of the coolest things about rehabbing dogs like that. They come out of their shell, they learn self-confidence, they learn how to, really work with you, and learning obedience skills, and just learning how to walk on a leash and run around a yard and play. It's so beautiful to watch.
That's amazing. I didn't know you could do that. I obviously haven't been around extremely harmed animals, but I've been around some you can tell were abused, and they're very skittish, and they won't walk up to people, and you can tell that things have been done to them. So I guess it takes, like a kid, or a person, it takes years probably for them to trust that somebody's not going to hit them when they walk up.
Yeah. And definitely, it's the same concept. And, we have a dog. The first one that comes to mind for me is Cello. We had a German Shepherd that was shot point blank in the head. I mean, honestly, beautiful dog. And we had some groundbreaking surgery. They took skin grafts from her legs to rebuild the side of her face. And she had some emotional issues after that, as one could imagine. But with therapy and with medication through the vet, she's great now. She's found a very loving couple that adopted her. I mean, she's their baby,
Right.
you know, but it's a long process, but it's so worth it at the end of it. So obviously that's our number one goal is rehabilitation. The second goal we have is we like to generate public awareness about the animal cruelty issues, about how the public can help, about how the public can get involved, about how the public can advocate. It's very important to us because Kentucky is one of the lowest of the low in states on animal welfare laws.
Really?
And that's just a facet of, you know, we've got a large farming community, we've got a large, hunting community, a large, horse industry.
Horses, yeah.
So it's difficult to get legislation through because if it could potentially affect those, it's going to be a little bit of a fight. And so that's been kind of, that ties into our number 4 goal, which is advocate for better animal welfare laws. And we do work with lobbyists. Currently, we're working on trying to revamp the torture bill to kind of redefine what exactly it means to torture an animal and increase the penalties related thereto. You would think it would be basic, but it's not.
I'm baffled that in 2020 that we have to have a law about torturing animals.
We do. We have to have a law on bestiality that just passed
I
recently.
remember seeing that about that last year sometime, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? That's a law?" And who?
Yeah,
I'm just baffled by that.
Sometimes it is baffling. I mean, it's incremental changes, to try to get where you want to be. And these animals deserve it. I mean, they deserve to have a bill that says you can't torture them.
Yeah, but then again, the moral aspect of me is like, it's shameful that you have people in this world that do things like that. And you have to have a law for it. I'm just baffled by I don't know what the right word is, the ignorance, I guess, of people to do stuff like that.
And it is, and that factors into number 5 of our goals, which is promote humane education and training. And that's one of our big goals. We have an education committee. They're highly involved in doing programming for schools. That's changed a little bit this year with COVID. We're kind of trying to do more remote online type things that we can have schools use. Other times we'll bring the dogs in for, to interact with the children. We've worked with juvenile delinquents before to bring the animals in to kind of teach them about care for animals, harming animals, how that can be linked to harming people, because there's a direct link there. And so we like to educate, especially the younger generation, on kindness and how to help and how to advocate.
Well, I've watched a lot of history stuff in crime, and I have watched things that talks about a lot of people that end up killing humans start out torturing animals.
Direct link.
Yeah. And so obviously if you get people early enough, but you got to worry about the mental stability of people that thinks it's okay so you've got a problem there to begin with.
Absolutely.
So at least you're starting somewhere, but the mental stability of people that thinks it's okay to torture an animal and then upgrade, I guess you could say, to torturing people. It's amazing that we have those issues in this world.
It absolutely is. And then, obviously when that happens, unfortunately, our other goal is to encourage vigorous prosecution of the abusers. Unfortunately, with a lot of our cases, we don't identify the abusers. Sometimes we offer rewards for information leading to prosecution and arrest, but unfortunately, often more times than not, we don't know who it is. When we can identify them, the Arrow Fund really works with organizations, prosecutors and what have you, to get them all the information that they need. When we get cases, we make sure there's a clear documented record of what happened, what they came in with, what their injuries were. Unfortunately, if they pass away, doing the necropsies that can be used as evidence against abusers, if the case goes before the court.
So how serious do the courts take it? I mean, they're letting people out of jail for harming people and doing theft. And and downgrading felonies to misdemeanors just to
Sure.
let people out of jail. Do they take animal abuse seriously in today's world? I mean, do they say, sorry, I hate that it happened, but there's no space in jail for this person? Or-
Yeah, unfortunately, I think the system, especially with COVID, is so backed up
Yeah.
that a lot of times they want to find alternative measures besides jail for individuals. You know, they'll get potentially fined, or they'll get restrictions put on, you know, whether they can have animals or how that works. But usually those restrictions, unfortunately, are only for a limited time period.
Yeah, we need military style jails, and I call them jails, but rehab centers to where people are forced to rehab and not just sit in a cell. You know, they need to think about what they did, but we've got, if we're going to release people back into society, we've got to figure out a way to change their mentality on how they do things. So.
Absolutely. And it's been shown through studies that having animals in jails and having, you know, inmates that care for these animals and form bonds with them, it increases their likelihood of rehabilitation. Yeah. And so that's something, like I said, we work with youth to try to get that kind of bond going at an early age. And this just kind of gives some more information on our goals. Like I said, rehabilitation, that's obviously one of our cases. Again, most of our animals are just extreme victims. I mean,
what the world happened to that poor dog? Looks like he got hit by a car or something.
Most of them come in. Some of them we don't know what happened. I mean, in truth, some of them, and I'll get to a case here. I've got a couple examples, but Ollie was one of our cases where little dog and was just basically laying on the side of the road, and people were driving by him because they thought he was dead. And a good Samaritan happened to look in their rear view and saw him raise up his head, and so turned around and grabbed him. And he was severely emaciated, had mange. His skin was so painful that, I mean, it took a long time to get his skin to where he could actually grow hair. And we just don't know. We just don't know how he ended up there or what he went through to get there. But,
so is that how you get most of your animals? People see them and pick them up and drop them off? I mean, do y'all have like a drop-off for animals, or how does that work?
Yeah, we don't have a drop-off. And the reason we don't have a drop-off is because I think we'd be inundated.
Yeah,
and
so.
I hate to say that.
Some of the other shelters had to change that policy because people would just lock them in and leave them and disappear.
Exactly.
And there's no funds to take care of a lot of that stuff, really.
No, and exactly. And a lot of our animals are so injured that we don't want somebody to drop one off without us knowing it's there. So a lot of times people contact us through our social media accounts.
Okay. So they know some of you obviously personally, and they reach out.
Yeah, or Facebook. They'll send a message to our Facebook. We have for a rescue organization, we have a really strong social media presence.
Okay.
On
that helps.
Facebook,
Twitter,
Twitter,
it gets a lot of
YouTube.
eyes out there looking to see what they see. You know?
Absolutely. I get messages a lot, you know, on my Facebook. We'll have somebody call the office and, you know, want to talk to somebody about a case that's coming in. Other rescues will contact us. Shelters will contact us if an animal comes in and they just don't have the ability to or the funds to take care of it. That's how Ranger came to us, honestly. The one that we had a dog named Ranger. Recently, we were contacted by a rural shelter. They were in their essentially kennels, and unfortunately, him and another dog attacked him through the kennel, and he lost his tongue as a result. So we were contacted by that shelter because they just didn't have the resources, unfortunately, to help him.
So I know in the state of Kentucky, probably everywhere, there was a problem for a while of chicken fighting and dog fights. Mm-hmm. Does that still happen quite a bit? And do you all end up with some of those animals sometimes? Or?
That absolutely happens.
That's unbelievable. I just can't wrap my head around, again, mental illness in this world of allowing animals to try and kill each other. It absolutely
happens. One of our most noted cases was a dog named Frodo. Frodo was a pit bull. He was found tied to a fence with his jaw duct taped shut. And I think they counted over 200 puncture wounds on him. His teeth had been ground down. He was a bait dog in a dog fighting ring.
A bait dog? I don't know what that is.
So a bait... Dog fighting rings, essentially, bait dogs are nicer dogs that don't really fight back, that are used as essentially target practice for the more aggressive dogs. So they can train.
Chewing bag.
Exactly.
Wow.
And a lot of times their teeth will be removed, their teeth will be ground down. exactly, and they get beat up, and then they just get chained outside and left until the next fight.
Have you
And
ever
so,
heard about any of this?
yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable.
And Frodo, we got Frodo. He had to have one, I believe he had to have one leg amputated, if I recall. He was treated, and he's the happiest dog, like one of the happiest dogs I have ever seen.
What do they do with
Just
his
so
teeth?
friendly.
I mean, how do they get his teeth fixed, or do they not?
They'll have to remove them. They can't fix those typically. Usually they'll have to be pulled.
I'm just in all of the stories that you tell.
It's hard. And a lot of times, and I don't know if you get this, but a lot of times what we get is, how can you do this work? How
We
can
do that
you,
too, yeah.
and I'm sure
Yeah.
Shirley's Way gets that too with the work that you all do with cancer. And quite simply, it's because of the success stories and because of the fact that, quite honestly, you just get so, pardon my language, damn mad of seeing these stories online and saying, you can't, there's only so much time that you can say, I can't look. I don't want to hear that. That's so sad.
You can't look.
I can't do
keep
it.
Looking away.
But if you don't do anything about it, it's just sad.
People
And it
ask us
just
that all
stays
the
there.
time, and my response is, somebody has to do something.
Exactly.
And we can't rely on our politicians to do everything, because, like it or not, Democrats or Republicans, a lot of times they're in it for themselves and not for the good of the community. And so who else is going to stand up and do these things unless, like you said, somebody gets pissed and has to do something? And that's what you have done. You've tried to fix a wrong in this world.
Yeah. And we, these animals have no other choice.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of times we are the last line for them,
absolutely.
quite frankly.
Given the condition that some of them are in, what did you say that dog's name was? Ollie?
That one, I don't think that is Ollie. I've got a later slide of Ollie, and I can't recall just off the top of my head. We've had hundreds of cases over the years, but we really focus on specialized care, meaning, like it says, we do neurosurgery, we do dermatologists, we do ophthalmologists, we do oncologists, we do behavioralists, trainers. Thank goodness, we have Katie Tap for that. But
do you all have a list of vets that work with you all on this stuff?
Yes, we do. A lot of them are specialty clinics. We work a lot with Blue Pearl here. We work a lot with Metro Services, Louisville Metro Animal Hospital. And then we've got some other specialists outside of Kentucky, like in Southern Indiana and Indianapolis. There's some dogs that we've flown to other areas of the country. We had a dog named Lad, who was a collie, Lassie. Comes to mind, he had been shot point blank in the face and lost his lower jaw. But he recovered. We took him to specialists in California to try to work on some innovative technology for, rehabilitating him and seeing if they could kind of do a prosthetic jaw. And unfortunately, Lad, succumbed to his injury. I mean, he passed away unexpectedly, which was just heartbreaking. But sometimes that happens. But we try everything we can.
Given what we deal with, the medical bills are outrageous for people trying to survive.
They're a lot.
Comparative for vet bills as well?
Yes.
Wow.
Some of our cases are thousands upon thousands of dollars, which is another reason, a lot of these dogs who are great dogs, and I don't even want to call them dogs, I want to call them family members. I mean, they're excellent family members.
Well, that is how they are for people.
Yeah, that's how they are for me. And so, they don't have any other chance because somebody else is going to look and say, I'm not going to spend that money to rehabilitate a dog in that condition, but they deserve it. I mean, and they're so good. They're so sweet. They're so loving. And
well, that goes back to what we say a lot of times, that money shouldn't be the reason that people do the right things. And it's unfortunate in the dog world and the people world, money takes precedence sometimes. And if you don't have it to pay for services, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah.
But it's sad to see. I don't know how anybody that has a heart can look at a person in need and turn them down on medical care, or an animal that looks like that and look the other way. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
It's hard. It's very hard, and expensive, it just says.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, we try to do an all-around approach for every animal we get, meaning what are their physical needs? What are their emotional needs? What are their needs long term? Meaning, is this a hospice type situation where
Is hospice for animals?
we do hospice
Okay.
care? If we take a case and, you know, they say there's no way that you can really rehabilitate this animal, but it's going to be okay with medication and such, but it's going to have a shorter lifespan, we put it in a hospice foster,
Okay.
so that it lives out its best days at the end of its life, and
you
it's
don't have
well
people
taken
on
care
a
of.
foster list to take these animals?
We do. We could always use more.
Yeah, obviously.
But
How can people sign up to be an animal foster?
yeah, you just go to our website. It's thearrowfund.org.
Okay.
And we have links for
Talk-
if you
walk
want
me
to
through it.
foster. Yeah. And fosters are really, we always say this, but they're the lifeblood of the organization. If we don't have fosters, we have nowhere to put
You
our
need about 20
put our
acres.
dogs.
With
We
a big
have-
fence.
we have
Allow
one-
the dogs just to run around.
We have one foster that is like Cheryl, who is our animal intake person.
Yeah.
That I think she has 12 or 13 right now, but she has a large tract of land, and
Yeah.
so she has some. I think she even took a pig that we rehabbed at one point.
Cheryl.
So Cheryl Noggle, yeah,
Yeah,
she's
I got a friend, her name's Michelle, and she adopted a pig, and she keeps it in her house. And anyway, it's
they're big.
yeah, they get.
They're not
She,
s-
she
they're
really
not-
enjoys it. But yeah, it's, when you
they're-
said that, I was making sure it wasn't hers. So
No, they're not small
you
animals.
probably know
and-
this person. We'll talk about it off the air. But
Yeah.
she's an animal lover. And anyway, she started posting pictures of the pig, and she treats it like a kid. I mean, it's amazing to watch.
I know. Cheryl loved hers. So, but and this just goes into a little bit more depth. Public awareness. Again, we want to do any sort of news articles, appearances, social media, newsletters that we can get out there. We want to keep the media focused on the link between animal abuse and how it affects humans as well. We seek justice for the animals. We do occasionally offer monetary rewards for information that leads to prosecution and arrest.
Are y'all successful on the prosecutions in some cases? Or?
Some. I mean, we'd always like better results.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, it's really not our call. It's typically the county attorney's call. But we do everything that we possibly can to show up if there's hearings, to be there, especially if the animal's passed away, so somebody's there for the animal.
Yeah.
To document, to have our vets provide any information that they need to be able to provide any evidence. I'm an attorney, but we have other attorneys on our board that are willing to work with the prosecutor to give them anything that they need or help in any way that we can. We would obviously like stronger laws on this.
Yeah, and you might think I'm crazy, but again, we need a military-style reform center to force people to learn how to behave. And if you've beaten something so bad, maybe you need a few of those licks yourself. They do that in Singapore and places like that. And it might make you think twice before you raise your hand to an animal or a child or a woman.
Some of the things these animals have been through, I don't wish on anyone.
No, it's unbelievable.
And I'm being completely honest on that. Completely honest.
It's absolutely horrible.
And this just goes to, we support, we advocate, we lobby, we, contact our legislators. One of the education programs we have is for kids to work on writing lobbying letters, how to write a good lobbying letter for causes that they believe in, whether it be animal abuse and neglect or whether it be some other cause that's important to them. But we want them to learn how to contact their legislators, how this process works.
I need to sign up for that class.
I'm going to tell you, you can, it's enlightening. And then promote humane education through the schools. Just kind of a look at some of our cases. Just so you guys know, the one down there on the left, that's Meatball, our chocolate. He's kind of a chocolate lab / Newfoundland. But we got Meatball. He's doing a good job. He came to us from a rural shelter. His back legs won't completely straighten, and they don't know if he was left in a small crate as he grew, so he couldn't, develop appropriately, or if it's genetic. But he is a love bug. He's huge, but he's very sweet. When we first got him, he could only travel about maybe 5 feet before sitting down. Now he can go hundreds of yards, but it's a permanent condition.
I bet that's what they did. you've seen the stories over the years where people will lock their kids in closets. So there's no telling what they lock animals in.
My Aerofund baby, Oscar, was terrified of crates. He was terrified of stairs, and he was terrified of small spaces. You know, and so, I mean, I'm sure at one point in time he was kept in a crate in a small space and probably in a basement.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what we deal with. This dog is Boone. Boone came to us with a bullet wound through the top of the mouth that penetrated up into the nasal cavity. Jaws were fractured. There was tongue and maggot infested neck wounds, emaciated. So Boone had to have the jaw wired shut, feeding tube, so that he could get nutrition.
Looks like he's got a good friend over there.
He does have a good buddy, recovery buddy. And you can see his ribs, you know, when we first got him, he was really emaciated. But surgeries performed, his strength has gotten up, his weight has gotten up. Obviously, you know, you go from that into a loving home where you get care and you get other animals that, you know, that are with you. And this, I don't know if I can play this.
I checked it earlier, so I think it should.
Yeah, do I just press play?
Whoop.
What'd I do?
Let's see if I can see it. We'll get back to it.
Yeah, but we had a video for you of Boone leaving the hospital. I think it's up. Yeah, one more. There it is. Oh, that's Josie. Well, this dog is Josie. Josie had both of her rear paw pads removed in some sort of leg hold trap. So essentially, she was walking around for days in the woods with no paws.
Just tearing her feet apart.
Just no feet really anymore. Just kind of nubs. But we took her to the vet, and they've done some innovative surgery where they've transferred some of the paw pads from her front feet to her rear paws, so that she won't need prosthetics.
Is that something they've ever done before? Is this kind of the first case they've given it a try?
Yeah, this is a first go at it.
And it's doing okay?
She seems to be doing okay. She's walking now.
Are the pads growing to her feet okay? Or?
Yeah, as of right now, they said it's going to be a long process. It's going to be several weeks, and this was just done a couple weeks ago. But it's a new technology that we're trying and seeing if it might help her. A young dog, again, just, you know, leg hold traps are terrible, really. That's Boone. That's when Boone left the hospital. So you can see, obviously, how thin, I know.
Harper's friend.
But you can obviously see how thin he was when he left the hospital. I know. Buddy, huh? And that was Josie.
Yeah.
I know, so many puppies. So many puppies. And this talks about our hospice program. Belle was one of our hospice dogs. Just an older dog who had persistently not had veterinary care that somebody contacted us about. And, you know, she had a lot of health issues. They kind of said, there's really nothing that you can do to rehabilitate her. You can do this, this, and this, and put her on this medication. And so she's in our hospice program until she eventually, you know, hopefully lives out her full life.
So you don't know what that's going to be. Just like people, you really don't know.
Don't know. Hope she has, you know, hope
so
she has all the time.
Probably just lays down and dies eventually. And yeah, okay.
It's hard, but these are some of our then and nows.
That's the same dog?
Same dog. It's hard to believe sometimes.
It looks like a different breed of dog on the left.
Sometimes they surprise us. Sometimes, you know, they come in with such severe emaciation and mange that you don't know what kind of dog it is.
Is that what that is? Is mange on the dog?
Mange. Wow. Yeah. And so sometimes you just don't know what kind of dog they're going to be. This again was Ollie that I told you about that was on the side of the road, presumed dead, until they looked in the rear car up in the right-hand corner. That's what he looked like when he came in. And you can see obviously his skin, how infected that was, and sore and painful. But he's had a lot of medication, a lot of antibiotics, and now, you know, he's been adopted, and this is him today. This was another one of our cases, Buster. He was shot in the face, close range, and a surgical team just determined it was too much damage to his eyes, so his eyes had to be removed, unfortunately. But he's completely adapted without sight. He's been adopted into a loving home. He lives on a farm now. And so really had a good recovery, but obviously you can see from his x-ray, those are shotgun pellets. And you just, I mean, you don't know why people do this. This is Winona and Ashley. They were found on the side of the road in rural Kentucky. 1 on a body scale of 10. Basically, 1 is the lowest grade of emaciation you can be before you pass away from a dog. But a Good Samaritan found them, brought them in. They had a lot of treatment. I mean, oxygen tank, IV, blood transfusions. They were actually with their mother. It's actually a good story because they were with their mother, who was also emaciated. And we took all 3 of them. We had an excellent, wonderful donor that paid for their full care.
Well, I was going to say, when you get something like that, is there a dollar limit that you say, all right, we can't go over this, or
No,
whatever it takes?
Whatever it takes.
Do you
when we take a
find
case,
a donor per animal to help, or is that
that's lucky.
Okay.
We have a donor that agreed to fund these 3, and the 2 were adopted together, and the mom was adopted separately into a loving home as well. But
ribs?
you find, I mean, they had rocks in their stomach, gravel, plastic. They'll eat whatever they can find at that point. And you got to be careful feeding them when you bring them in, because they are so emaciated. You really have to do a lot of small, tiny meals
Their
over a
body would
long
probably
period
go
of
into
time.
shock if they ate a lot of meal
Exactly.
at the beginning.
But these 2 are just, I mean, the difference is crazy from the top photo to the bottom photo. And they're, you know, I'm happy that they got adopted together. The mama, like I said, is adopted separately, but mom did a lot of work keeping them alive. She needed a break with her own family, and she did great. But, and then how people can help us foster. We need a place for these animals. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to be a foster because, you know, I'll get too attached. I don't want to give the animal away. But the fosters that I talk to with our organization, there are foster fails. I'm one. I kept the dog that I fostered because there was no way by that point, we were so bonded, there was no way I was giving him away. But we do have fosters, though, that say, you know, I'm happy to be a part of the link in the chain to get this animal to its forever happy life. And that's, I think, a good way to think about fostering. If you can't keep an animal, and you just give them a safe place to recover and rehabilitate. And again, if you go to thearrowfund.org, we have information on fostering in there. Another thing is we do Kroger community rewards. So if you shop with a Kroger Plus card, you can go to www.kroger.com, go to the bottom, select community rewards, and after enrolling, you can search for us. There's not a cost for anybody, but it gives back.
Just say Amazon.
Amazon Smile as well. You can go to Amazon Smile and link it up with the Arrow Fund, and that helps us. Or we have an Amazon wish list as well if you go on Amazon and search for the Arrow Fund. But we can be contacted at our website, thearrowfund.org, Facebook, the Arrow Fund, you know, just look up the Arrow Fund, and you can contact us via voicemail. That's where people call and leave voicemails about intake cases. But honestly, the best ways to get through to us are sending us messages on our website or on our Facebook. We check those regularly, especially for intake cases.
Right. Yeah, the background checks, I assume, on the fosters?
Yes, we have.
I hope.
We do very extensive checks.
Yeah.
We do foster applications, adoption applications. We usually do interviews. We usually do kind of test runs where we'll go to the house, you know, make sure that everything jives with the animal. And sometimes it doesn't. You know, sometimes we think, you know, somebody will adopt an animal, their circumstances will change or something will change and we'll have to relocate them. That doesn't happen all the time. That's not something we want. But really our goal is to get our animals in the best home, the most loving home, and the most effective home for them and what they've been through.
So your dog fighter in Kentucky is not going to easily go pick up a few dogs to add to their entertainment. Surely you probably got a list of those people somewhere that you know are not good places for animals.
No, that's not going to happen. We have an adoption and foster head committee, basically. It's an intake committee that also deals with the adoptions and the fostering, and they are super vigilant about who the animals go to, who they get adopted to. And yeah, because again, they deserve a chance and they deserve the best. And that's our motto with this. There's not a lot of organizations that take these kind of cases because of the cost. I mean, the cost is really significant. And that's why, you know, we really want to help as many as we can.
Yeah.
And that's why we, you know, always appreciate donations, always appreciate fosters. Those are really two of the biggest things that keep us going.
Well, to get involved, I thought it was arrowfund.org, but it's thearrowfund.org. This is
Yeah.
the website.
Yeah.
And people can go there and sign up to potentially be a foster.
Mm-hmm.
If you see animal abuse, is there a way on your website to report animal abuse?
Yeah.
Say you know your neighbor has a dog and you can see their ribs. Do people call in about stuff like that?
Yes,
Okay.
all the time.
And y'all will research it and dig
Yep.
into it?
Usually we will research it. We'll reach out to them. We'll reach out to the authorities in that community, try to make sure that they do a visit out there to see what's going on. We do anything that we can. Sometimes we will go out and talk to the owners and potentially try to get the owners to surrender the animal if we think that it's a very bad situation. And that happens sometimes. Yeah. But it's just, you know, it's a problem in Kentucky, and a lot of people might not realize the extent of the problem, but it is certainly a large problem. And there's a reason why we're as low as we are on animal welfare and animal welfare laws, and we need to change that.
So you're a statewide organization?
We are. We help animals in all different rural communities. I mean, obviously a lot of our cases come from Jefferson County or around Jefferson, Shelby, Oldham, but a lot of our cases do come from rural counties. I mean, the Ashley and Winona, they came from rural Eastern Kentucky. Okay. And so we have a lot of rural shelters that call, and when they get the severe cases, they just don't have the funding or the resources to do anything. And we like those calls because it means they're trying to reach out and trying to give the animal a chance and not just doing the quick, well, it's injured, euthanize route. And so we want people to call.
No, I bet. But again, like with us, with what we do, you can get overwhelmed.
You can get overwhelmed.
It's tough to have the funding that it takes to handle this. So
yeah, saying no is awful.
It is.
And sometimes we have to say no if we don't have enough people, or if we don't, you know, if we look and we don't have enough funds because we're treating, you know, so many others in care at the time.
Do you have to say no very often?
It's a terrible thing. We have to say no. Yeah. And it's, you know, we will typically try to tap another rescue that might be able to contribute to some vet bills or something. Like I said, nobody does really what we do, but we'll try to find something if we can't help. But more often than not, if we can't help, they, you know, they typically get euthanized. So it's very difficult. Our animal intake committee is a group of very dedicated people, and they're the ones that take those calls, those difficult calls. They're the ones that are up at night. They're the ones that get calls at 3 a.m. They're the ones that are arranging transport across the state, you know, at all hours, and driving, you know, legs to get these animals and get them back to us or back to the vets. And they are very dedicated, and that is a very difficult committee.
I was going to say, I've got some friends that are, and I love animals, so but they can't have kids, or they choose not to have kids.
Yeah.
And their animals are their kids.
They're babies.
And they will do anything for these animals, and it's amazing to watch. So.
Yep. I trust me. I've had, you know, my last dog was my baby, and, you know, he passed away in my arms 13 years in, and it's just, you know, it's hard.
It is. It really
hard.
is. You have a whole yard full of animals?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. My kids, I have a 5-year-old and an 18-month-old, and the 18-month-old is just hugs and pets and lays on them, and she's so good with them, thank God, and they're so good with her. But yeah, we love our animals, and, you know, I would implore anybody, if you've got the time, look us up and see if there's a way that you want to get involved or help. We always need volunteers as well. We do a lot of events, obviously not during COVID, but we do a lot of events, and we can always take volunteers. We can always take fosters. We are always happy to take donations. And again, thank you for inviting us in and giving us this platform to be able to
We're hoping it helps.
present
We're
our
hoping
story.
that people will realize the problem we have in this community with our animals, and maybe they'll look you all up. So thank you all for coming in. Thanks for bringing Harper. And if you want to help the animals in our community, the arrowfund.org, and check it out. You can go sign up to be a foster, report animal abuse, and please do that. There's no reason in this world for animals to be in the situations that you've seen on this TV. So thank you for coming in, and we'll talk to you here soon.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.